The stars burned cold in the void as Ambassador stood before the massive viewing screen aboard the command station. Her three eyes tracked the red markers spreading across the holographic display like a disease. Each marker represented a world under attack by the Empire. "How many casualties?" she asked, her translator converting her melodic speech into standard galactic code. The tactical officer beside her hesitated. 17 million in the first wave. The number keeps rising. This chest tightened. 3,000 cycles of peace, shattered in a single solar rotation. They had come without warning, their bioweapons turning entire cities into graveyards before the defenders could even raise their shields. This was not war as the galaxy knew it. This was extermination. "Send distress signals to all coalition members," she ordered. "Emergency protocols. We need every ship, every soldier." But even as she spoke, De knew the truth. The coalition was not ready for this. They had grown soft during the long peace. Their weapons were outdated, their tactics ancient, their soldiers trained more for ceremony than combat. They had been preparing for this moment for generations. A junior officer rushed onto the bridge, his skin flushed with urgency. "Ambassador, we are detecting unusual transmissions from the galactic rim." De turned. "The rim, there is nothing out there but empty space." "That is what we thought, Ambassador, but these signals are strong, and they are responding to our distress calls." She moved to the communication station. The signals appeared as strange patterns on the screen, unlike anything in the Coalition's databases. The encryption was old, incredibly old, but somehow still functional. "Can you decode it?" De asked. The communications officer worked for several minutes, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. Finally, a message appeared in standard galactic script, though the phrasing was archaic and strange. "We heard your distress. We remember when the galaxy forgot us. We are coming." A chill ran through De's body. "Who sent this?" "Unknown, Ambassador. The signature does not match any known species in our records." De ordered the message analyzed by every expert on the station. Linguists studied the word patterns. Historians searched the ancient archives. Scientists examined the transmission technology. Hours passed as they continued their advance, consuming world after world. Then, deep in the oldest section of the Coalition archives, a junior historian named Bora found something. It was a fragment, barely readable, from the earliest days of galactic civilization. The file was marked with warnings: unverified, possibly mythological, cultural legend only. The fragment spoke of a species called humans, of a world called Terra or Earth, of beings who had been part of the original galactic coalition over 5,000 cycles ago. But then something had happened, some catastrophic event, and an entire sector of space had been cut off from the rest of the galaxy. The fragment ended with a single line: "May the humans find their way home again." Bora brought the fragment to Ambassador De. She read it 3 times, not believing what she saw. "This must be a mistake," she said. "Humans are legends, stories we tell children. They are not real." "Perhaps," Bora said quietly, "but what if the legends were true?" Before De could respond, alarms screamed across the command station. A battle fleet had entered the system, 20 massive warships with enough firepower to crack planets. The station's defenses were pathetic in comparison. "All ships to defensive positions," De shouted. "Evacuate non-essential personnel." The battle began badly. Biomissiles melted through shield systems designed for conventional weapons. Their boarding parties were creatures of nightmare, genetically engineered for violence. Within minutes, 3 coalition vessels were destroyed. Within an hour, the station itself was breached. De stood on the bridge preparing for the end, when every screen suddenly went dark. Then they flickered back to life, showing something impossible. Ships were emerging from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. 12 vessels, their designs unlike anything in Coalition records. They were sleek where ships were brutal, elegant where ships were ornate. They moved with perfect coordination, like a school of fish or a flock of birds. "Identify those ships," they commanded. Unable to identify, Ambassador. "Their technology is not in our databases. Their hull materials, their energy signatures, their propulsion systems, all unknown." The strange ships accelerated toward the battle with impossible speed. The fleet turned to meet them, confident in their superior numbers. It was a confidence that would not last long. The first exchange of fire lasted exactly 47 seconds. When it was over, 4 warships were drifting wrecks, their hulls punctured by weapons that seemed to adapt and change with each shot. The mysterious ships had not lost a single vessel. The fleet broke formation and retreated. They were not cowards, but they recognized when they faced something beyond their understanding. The mysterious ships did not pursue. Instead, they moved into a protective formation around the damaged coalition station. This communicator chimed with an incoming message. She accepted it with shaking hands. The face that appeared on her screen was strange, bilateral symmetry, only 2 eyes, skin that came in shades she had never seen on a sentient species. But the expression was unmistakable. It was a smile. "This is Captain of the Earth Defense Fleet," the being said in perfect, if oddly accented, galactic standard. "We received your distress call. Sorry we are late. We had quite a distance to travel." Da found her voice. You are human." "Yes, Ambassador, we are human, and we have come home." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of damaged systems. Every member of the crew stared at the screen, at the impossible made real. The myths had returned. The legends were true. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The human fleet hung in space like a promise or a threat. Ambassador could not decide which. For 3 days, coalition leadership had debated what to do about these mysterious saviors. Some called them a gift from the ancient stars. Others whispered that they might be allies using psychological warfare. Commander 1 stood in the docking bay of his ship, waiting. He was a tall man by human standards, his dark hair cut short in military fashion. His uniform was simple, deep blue with silver insignia that meant nothing to the coalition species. Behind him, 50 members of his crew prepared for the diplomatic meeting that would determine humanity's place in the new galaxy. "Commander," said Doctor, approaching with her usual quick steps. She was the fleet's chief scientist, a woman whose curiosity had gotten them into trouble more than once. "They are sending a shuttle. Ambassador de herself is coming aboard." One nodded. "Make sure the translation systems are working perfectly. We have one chance to make this right." The shuttle arrived an hour later. Ambassador D emerged with a security detail of 6 armed guards. One noticed how their hands stayed near their weapons. He could not blame them. To the coalition, humans were ghosts stepping out of ancient stories. "Ambassador," one said, bowing slightly, "welcome aboard the Indomitable. We are honored by your presence." Da studied him with her 3 eyes, each one blinking independently. "Commander 1, your people saved this station and everyone aboard it. For that, we are grateful, but gratitude and trust are different things." "I understand completely," one replied. "Please follow me, we have much to discuss." He led them through the ship's corridors. The guards looked around nervously, their sensors trying to analyze everything they saw. Human technology was giving them problems. The metal alloys were unfamiliar. The power systems did not match any known design. Even the air had a slightly different composition. They entered a conference room where Doctor waited with several other humans. One gestured for everyone to sit. The furniture adjusted automatically to accommodate different body types, which made the guards jump. "Let us be direct," De said once everyone was settled. "Who are you? Where did you come from? And why now, after 5,000 cycles, do humans suddenly appear?" Doctor activated a holographic display. It showed a map of the galaxy as it had been 5,000 cycles ago. A bright section on the galactic rim was marked in blue. This was human space, explained. 23 star systems, 41 colonized worlds, billions of people. We were part of the Galactic Coalition, trading partners and allies with and dozens of other species. That much matches our ancient records, Day admitted. The fragments we have, at least. Change the image, then this happened. The hologram showed a massive wormhole, a shortcut through space that connected human territory to the rest of the galaxy. Suddenly, the wormhole collapsed in a cascade of energy that looked like a dying star. The cascade event, said quietly. Every wormhole connecting human space to the galaxy collapsed simultaneously. In one terrible moment, we were cut off completely. No communication, no travel, no contact with the rest of civilization. De leaned forward. What caused it? We did not know for 3,000 cycles, one said, his voice hard. We thought it was a natural disaster, a cosmic accident. We spent generations trying to find a way back, developing new technologies, pushing our science to its limits. We never stopped trying to come home. And then, they asked. And then we discovered the truth, said. She changed the image again, showing ancient data files recovered from a derelict station. The collapse was not natural, it was sabotage. Someone destroyed those wormholes deliberately, cutting humanity off from the galaxy. The room fell silent. Des guards shifted nervously, their hands tightening on their weapons. Who, De finally asked, who would do such a thing? We are still investigating, one said, but we have suspicions. Before he could continue, alarms blared throughout the ship. A young officer burst into the conference room. Commander, we have a distress signal. A colony ship is under attack by raiders, 3 light towers from here. One stood immediately. How many raiders? 6 attack craft, 1 destroyer. De rose as well. That colony ship carries 5,000 civilians, mostly families. We have no ships close enough to help them in time. We do, one said. He looked at his communications officer. Alert Lieutenant Sung, tell him to take his team and go. Full authorization for combat operations. 10 minutes later, a small human craft launched from the Indomitable. It was barely larger than a fighter, yet it moved with incredible speed. Inside, Lieutenant Sung and his team of 8 soldiers prepared for combat. Sung was a quiet man, his face marked with scars from a dozen battles. He had been fighting since he was young, first in training, then in the desperate wars humanity had waged against itself during the long isolation. He knew violence the way poets knew words. 3 minutes to target, the pilot announced. Sung checked his weapons one last time. Human military technology had evolved in strange directions during the isolation. Their armor was lighter but stronger. Their weapons were more adaptable. They had learned to fight in ways the old galaxy had never imagined. The colony ship appeared on their screens, surrounded by raiders. The massive vessel's shields were failing under the constant assault. Escape pods were launching, but they were destroying them for sport. Engage, Sung ordered. What happened next would be discussed in coalition military academies for generations. The small human craft moved through the formation like a blade through water. Their weapons fired in patterns that seemed random but were actually perfectly calculated. They used the debris field as cover, the colony ship's gravity well as a slingshot. Even this own weapons fire against them. In 4 minutes, all 6 attack craft were destroyed. The destroyer tried to flee, but Sung's team disabled its engines with surgical precision. Then they boarded it, cleared it of hostiles, and claimed it as salvage. When they returned to the Indomitable, Sung's team had not lost a single soldier. Ambassador De watched the combat footage 3 times. Each time she felt a growing certainty in her chest. These humans were not myths. They were survivors, and they had spent 5,000 cycles learning how to be very, very dangerous. "Commander 1," she said slowly, "I think the Coalition would very much like humanity to join our war effort." One smiled. "We were hoping you would say that." The Battle of Prime began at dawn, though dawn meant nothing in the void of space. General Sungmin watched from the bridge of the human flagship as Coalition forces assembled for what everyone knew would be a desperate fight. 50 Coalition warships against an invasion fleet of 200. The mathematics were not encouraging. "General," said his tactical officer, a young woman named Heian, "Coalition Command is requesting we take position in the rear guard. They suggest we use our smaller ships for reconnaissance only." Sungmin smiled without humor. "They think we are too valuable to risk, or too fragile." "Probably both, sir." The general studied the battle display. The Coalition had arranged their ships in a traditional defensive formation, creating overlapping fields of fire around Prime. It was textbook strategy, the kind taught in every military academy in the galaxy. It was also predictable, which meant they would cut through it like paper. "Open a channel to Coalition Command," Sungmin ordered. "Tell them we respectfully decline the rear guard position. We are taking point." The Coalition commander, a grizzled veteran, appeared on the screen. His 4 eyes blinked in surprise. "General Sungmin, your fleet is barely 12 ships. Putting you in front of the advance is suicide." "Perhaps," Sungmin agreed. "But I would like to try something your forces have not seen before. Will you trust me?" They hesitated, then nodded slowly. "The Coalition thanks humanity for its courage. May your deaths be quick." "We plan to live," Sungmin said and closed the channel. He turned to his crew. "Signal all ships. Formation Delta 7. Prepare for rapid engagement and immediate withdrawal." The human fleet broke from the Coalition line and accelerated toward the incoming armada. From the Coalition ships, it looked like madness. 12 small vessels charging toward 200 warships. They noticed the humans coming. They had heard reports from the fleet that had retreated from the station, stories that sounded too strange to believe. Now they would see for themselves what these mythical humans could do. The first weapons fire came when the humans were still at extreme range. Massive bioplasma cannons that could melt through conventional shields. But the human ships did not try to block the shots. Instead, they dodged. The vessels moved in ways that should have torn them apart, pulling maneuvers that would kill any other species through sheer gravitational force. They twisted, rolled, and spiraled through the deadly fire like dancers in a deadly ballet. "How are they surviving those accelerations?" the commander muttered, watching from his own bridge. Aboard the human flagship, General Sungmin felt the crushing force of 12 gravities pressing against his body. His specialized suit compressed around him, forcing blood to his brain. His bones, stronger than any Coalition species due to Earth's heavy gravity, held firm. His consciousness wavered but did not break. This was the human advantage. This was what 5,000 cycles of isolation had given them. While other species had grown comfortable on gentle worlds, humanity had never forgotten what it meant to be forged in Earth's brutal embrace. "Fire," Sungmin commanded. The human weapons were not like anything they had faced. They did not simply shoot energy or projectiles. They adapted. Engineer Heian had designed systems that analyzed enemy defenses in real time and changed their attack patterns accordingly. Weapons that learned and evolved within seconds of encountering resistance. The first volley caught them completely by surprise. Their bioorganic shields, designed to absorb and redistribute conventional energy weapons, encountered ammunition that shifted frequencies faster than the shields could adapt. Explosions blossomed across the line as 3 massive warships simply disintegrated. The formation wavered. This was not how battles were supposed to go. The smaller force was supposed to be destroyed quickly, not take out capital ships with surgical precision. "Pull back," Sung-min ordered. "Lead them into the trap." The human ships turned and accelerated away from the fleet. It looked like retreat. The angry and confused gave chase. They abandoned their careful formation and rushed forward, determined to crush these annoying humans. Exactly as Sung-min had planned. The pursuing ships entered the kill zone without realizing it. They were so focused on the humans that they failed to notice how the coalition fleet had repositioned. On Sung-min's signal, 50 coalition warships opened fire simultaneously, catching the in a perfect crossfire. But the humans were not done. High above the battle, pilot Sora waited in her experimental fighter craft. She was one of humanity's best pilots, a woman who had been flying since she was barely old enough to reach the controls. Her craft was tiny, almost invisible to sensors, and armed with weapons that most species would consider insane. "Sora," came Sung-min's voice over the comm. "You are clear to engage." She smiled and pushed her craft into a dive that would have killed any other pilot. The acceleration crushed her into her seat, but her training held. Her body endured what her mind demanded. Her target was the command carrier, a massive vessel in the center of their fleet. Its shields were nearly impenetrable, its armor thick enough to shrug off direct hits from battleship cannons. But Heian had given Sora something special. The missile launched from her craft was small, no larger than a person. It did not try to punch through the carrier's shields. Instead, it slipped through them like a ghost, using quantum tunneling technology that humanity had perfected during their isolation. The missile passed through the shields as if they did not exist and buried itself in the carrier's hull. The explosion came from inside. The command carrier's shields, designed to keep damage out, now trapped the destruction within. The mighty vessel tore itself apart from the inside, its own defenses making the damage catastrophic. The fleet broke. In 800 cycles of conquest, they had never faced defeat like this. Never had an inferior force humiliated them so completely. They turned and fled, leaving behind 70 destroyed ships and their pride. On the bridge of his flagship, General Sung-min allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The coalition commanders were flooding his communications with questions, demands to know how the humans had achieved such an impossible victory. "Tell them," he said to his communications officer, "that they just witnessed Earth doctrine. Tell them that humanity learned to fight during 5,000 cycles of isolation. We had no one to rely on but ourselves. We learned to use what we had. We learned to adapt. We learned to win against impossible odds because losing meant extinction." The message was sent to every ship in the coalition fleet. On dozens of bridges, commanders of different species read the words and felt something they had not experienced in 3,000 cycles of peace. They felt hope. They had ruled through fear and superior force for 8 centuries. They had seemed unstoppable, inevitable, a force of nature rather than an army. But today they had been beaten. Today the myths had proven themselves real. And across the galaxy, in dark rooms and hidden bases, intelligence officers pulled up their oldest files. Files marked with dire warnings. Files about humanity. Files that had been written by ancestors who had known the truth 5,000 cycles ago. The files all said the same thing: never let the humans return. They do not fight to win battles. They fight to survive extinction, and they always find a way. They had ignored those warnings. Now they would learn why their ancestors had been so afraid. Captain's fleet moved through the debris field like hunters tracking prey. The wreckage of the command carrier floated in space, still glowing from the internal explosions that had torn it apart. Somewhere in that wreckage were answers that humanity had been seeking for 5,000 cycles. "Boarding teams ready," reported Lieutenant Na from the tactical station. She was a woman of sharp intelligence and sharper instincts, the kind of officer who saw patterns where others saw only chaos. "But Captain, that wreck is unstable. We might have minutes before it breaks apart completely." Then we move fast, said. He had not waited 5,000 years to hesitate now. Launch teams, find the data cores and get out. 12 boarding pods shot toward the broken carrier. Inside one of them, Na led a team of specialists trained for exactly this kind of mission. They wore heavy armor and carried equipment designed to extract information from dying ships. The carrier's interior was a nightmare of twisted metal and fires burning in pockets of escaping oxygen. Bodies of crew floated in the corridors, their bioengineered forms now just debris. Na pushed through the destruction toward the ship's data center, following a map that human intelligence had pieced together from captured vessels. 2 minutes, her pilot warned over the comm. Hull integrity is failing. Na found the data center and immediately began downloading everything she could. Encryption was sophisticated, but human code breakers had been studying it for years. The files began flowing into her portable storage unit, thousands of documents, millions of records, secrets that had kept for centuries. One file caught her attention. It was older than the others, marked with warnings in ancient script. She flagged it for priority download just as the ship shuddered violently. "Time's up," the pilot shouted. "Get out now." Na grabbed her equipment and ran. Behind her, the data center collapsed in a shower of sparks and screaming metal. She made it to the boarding pod with seconds to spare. As her team pulled away, the carrier broke in half, spilling its contents into the void. Back on the human flagship, Na presented her findings to Captain and Ambassador Duh, who had become humanity's primary contact with the Coalition. The ancient file she had flagged sat on the holographic display between them. "It is encrypted with military codes from 5,000 cycles ago," Na explained. "The encryption was so old that it actually made it easier to break. Modern do not even remember these codes." "What does it say?" De asked, her 3 eyes focused intently on the display. Na activated the file. What appeared made everyone in the room go silent. The document was a military order, issued by the High Command 5,000 cycles in the past. The order was simple and terrible: destroy the wormholes connecting human space to the rest of the galaxy. Cut humanity off completely. Make them disappear into myth and legend. And most importantly, ensure they never returned. "They knew," said quietly. "They knew what humanity was capable of. They were afraid of us." Doctor, who had been studying the document, pointed to a section near the end. "Look here. It lists the reasons why the wanted humanity isolated. They had been watching us for decades before the Cascade event. They saw how humans solved problems, how we adapted, how we refused to accept defeat." She read aloud, "The humans possess a dangerous quality. When faced with extinction, they do not surrender. They evolve. They change. They find ways to survive that other species would never consider. If they are allowed to remain part of the Galactic Coalition, they will eventually surpass us in every way. Therefore, they must be removed." Ambassador Da felt sick. "They destroyed your civilization because they were afraid you would be better than them." "Not just better," said, "different. Humans think in ways that other species do not. We question everything. We challenge authority. We refuse to accept that anything is impossible. To a rigid empire like we were a threat to their entire way of life." "But you survived," De said. "You spent 5,000 cycles finding your way back." "We did more than survive," Na said. She pulled up another file. "We watched. Look at this." The hologram showed a network of monitoring stations scattered across the galaxy. Hundreds of them, placed in subtle locations where they would not be noticed. Each one had been observing the Coalition, recording everything, waiting for the moment when humanity could return. "You have been spying on us for 5,000 cycles?" De asked, not sure whether to be impressed or horrified. "We needed to know if the galaxy was still worth coming home to," explained. "We needed to understand what had changed, who had risen, who had fallen, and we needed to know if there were still a threat." He changed the display to show expansion over the past 1,000 cycles. They have been preparing for this war for generations. They have been building their forces, perfecting their bioweapons, positioning their fleets. We realized 6 months ago that they were about to launch a full-scale invasion of the coalition. So you decided to reveal yourselves now, De said. We could not let them destroy another civilization, said. Not when we had the power to help. Not when we remembered what it felt like to be cut off from the galaxy, alone and forgotten. Ambassador De stood and walked to the viewing port. Outside, human ships moved in formation with coalition vessels, two civilizations working together against a common enemy. She thought about the ancient betrayal, about 5,000 cycles of isolation, about the determination it must have taken for humans to keep trying to come home. I need to bring this information to the Coalition Council, she said finally. They need to understand what happened. They need to know the truth. Be careful, warned. Not everyone will want to hear it. Some species have treaties with some have business interests. Revealing that the deliberately destroyed an entire civilization might cause political problems. De smiled grimly. Let it cause problems. The truth is more important than politics. She was right, though not in the way she expected. When the Coalition Council received the evidence of sabotage, the political consequences were immediate and severe. 3 species immediately broke their treaties with the Concordat, which had remained neutral, offered humanity full trading rights and military support. But the most important consequence came from an unexpected source. The High Council, the oldest and most respected governing body in the coalition, made an announcement that shocked the galaxy. Humanity's isolation was an injustice, the High Council declared. They were removed from the galactic community through an act of deliberate sabotage. They have spent 5,000 cycles trying to return. Now that they are here, we formally recognize them not as a new species, but as a returning founding member of the Galactic Coalition. All rights, privileges, and honors that were theirs 5,000 cycles ago are hereby restored. The announcement changed everything. Humanity was no longer a mysterious newcomer or a useful ally. They were recognized as an integral part of galactic civilization, with all the authority and responsibility that came with that status. Captain received the news while standing on his bridge. He thought about all the generations that had come before him, all the people who had worked and died trying to find a way home. They had never given up hope. They had believed that someday, somehow, humanity would return to the stars it had once called home. We are home, he said quietly to himself. Finally, we are home. But there was still work to do. They were not defeated, only pushed back. And now that humanity's secret was revealed, they knew they faced the very thing they had tried to prevent 5,000 cycles ago. The real war was about to begin. Admiral Wu stood at the center of the largest war room humanity had ever constructed. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of 300 coalition ships, including 60 vessels of the human fleet. This was the combined might of a dozen species, all united under a single purpose: end the threat forever. Final status reports, Wu ordered. He was an older man, his hair gray, his face marked with the lines of too many difficult decisions. But his eyes were sharp and his voice steady. He had commanded fleets when the rest of humanity thought they were alone in the universe. Now he commanded fleets alongside species his ancestors had called friends. The reports came in one by one, all ships ready, all crews prepared. The assault on the home system would begin in 1 hour. Ambassador Da entered the war room, followed by Representative One, who would speak for humanity in the new coalition government. One was younger than most of the military commanders, a diplomat rather than a warrior, but she carried herself with quiet confidence. Admiral, One said, the Council has voted. If you succeed today, humanity will be offered a permanent seat on the Coalition Security Council. We will have full authority in galactic affairs. If we succeed, Wu repeated, that is a significant qualification. They have never lost their home system, they added. Their defenses are legendary. Orbital fortresses, automated defense grids, bioengineered guardian creatures in the millions. Every species that has tried to attack them has been destroyed. Wu smiled slightly. Then it is fortunate that humanity has never been like every other species. He turned to his staff. Begin the operation. All ships advance to jump coordinates. The fleet moved as one, hundreds of vessels entering faster-than-light travel simultaneously. They emerged at the edge of the home system 30 minutes later, and immediately the defenses activated. They had built their home system into the greatest fortress in the galaxy. Automated weapons platforms filled the space between planets. Energy shields covered every important location. Swarms of bioships launched from hidden stations, each one grown specifically to kill intruders. The first wave of coalition ships moved forward, drawing fire and mapping the defenses. They took heavy casualties, but that was expected. This was the traditional approach to breaking a fortress: sacrifice to learn, then attack with knowledge. But Wu was not interested in traditional approaches. Execute Ghost Protocol, he ordered. 50 human ships suddenly disappeared from every sensor in the system. They did not jump away. They did not hide behind shields. They simply vanished, using stealth technology that humanity had perfected during 5,000 cycles of watching a galaxy that had forgotten them. The defenses, designed to track and destroy anything that moved, suddenly had nothing to aim at. The bioships circled in confusion. The automated platforms fired at empty space. Meanwhile, the invisible human ships moved deeper into the system, carrying specialized teams to specific targets. General Sung Min commanded one group, heading for the primary defense grid. Engineer Heian led another, targeting the bioship production facilities. Lieutenant Sung took a third team toward the command center on the itself. Sung's mission was the most dangerous. He and his soldiers would land on the planet, infiltrate the most heavily defended structure in the galaxy, and capture the Empress alive. It was suicide by any reasonable measure, which meant it was exactly the kind of mission humans excelled at. His team landed on the dark side of the planet, using drop pods that punched through the atmosphere too fast for defenses to track. They hit the ground in a jungle filled with bioengineered predators, creatures designed to kill anything that did not have genetics. Sung and his team fought through the jungle with brutal efficiency. They had trained for this on a dozen hostile worlds during humanity's isolation. They knew how to move silently, how to kill quickly, how to turn an enemy's environment against them. The command center loomed ahead, a massive structure that seemed to grow out of the planet itself. Guards patrolled the perimeter, thousands of them, all genetically enhanced for combat. "This is insane," one of Sung's soldiers whispered. "There are too many." "There are always too many," Sung replied calmly. "That is why we will win. They expect us to be reasonable. They expect us to retreat when the odds are impossible. But we are human. We do not know how to give up." They moved forward. In orbit, General Sung Min's team reached the defense grid control center. Heian worked quickly to hack the systems, her fingers flying across holographic interfaces, while Sung Min and his soldiers held off waves of defenders. "I can disable the grid," Heian shouted over the sounds of weapons fire, "but not permanently. You will have a 10-minute window, maybe less." "10 minutes is enough," Sung Min replied. "Do it." The defense grid shut down. Immediately, the coalition fleet surged forward, punching through the weakened defenses. Admiral Wu watched from his flagship as 300 ships converged on the. "All ships," he commanded, "target only military installations. No civilian casualties. We are here to end a war, not commit genocide." This was the difference between humanity and the fought to conquer and control. Humans fought to survive and protect. Even after everything they had done, even after 5,000 cycles of isolation, humanity still believed in mercy. On the planet's surface, Sung reached the inner sanctum of the command center. The Empress waited there, surrounded by her final guards. She was ancient by standards, her bioengineered body kept alive by technology older than most civilizations. "So the myths are true," she said in perfect galactic standard. "The humans have returned." "We were always coming back," Sung replied. "You could not keep us away forever." The Empress gestured and her guards stood down. She was intelligent enough to know when a battle was lost. "What will you do with me? Execute me as a war criminal? Parade me before your coalition as proof of your victory?" "Neither," Sung said. "You will surrender. You will order all forces to stand down, and then you will face justice in a proper trial." "You would give me a trial, after what my ancestors did to your people." "That is what civilized species do," Sung said firmly. "We are not here for revenge. We are here to stop the killing." The Empress studied him for a long moment, then began to laugh. It was a bitter, painful sound. "My ancestors were right to fear you, not because you are cruel, but because you are better than us. You show mercy we would never show. You offer justice when we would offer only death." She reached for a communication device and broadcast her surrender across the entire empire. Within hours, fleets across the galaxy began laying down their weapons. The war was over. Months later, Representative One stood before the Galactic Coalition Council. The chamber was filled with representatives from every species in known space. Humans, and dozens of others. Even representatives were present, part of the new government that had formed after the Empress's trial and imprisonment. 5,000 cycles ago," one said, her voice clear and strong, "humanity was betrayed and forgotten. We became myths, then legends, then stories that no one believed. But we never forgot who we were. We never stopped trying to come home." She paused, looking around the chamber. "Today we are home, not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as partners. We return to the galaxy not to dominate it, but to contribute to it. We bring 5,000 cycles of hard-earned knowledge, of survival against impossible odds, of refusing to give up even when all hope seemed lost. The galaxy tried to forget us," she continued. "But we remembered you, and we came back when you needed us most. Let this be a lesson to all species for all time. Never forget where you came from. Never forget who you were. Never forget the friends you left behind, because someday they might come home, and when they do, they should find a galaxy worth returning to." The council chamber erupted in applause. It was not just for humanity, though they were the focus. It was for hope itself, for the idea that isolation could be overcome, for the proof that determination and resilience could triumph over any obstacle. Captain watched the speech from Earth, which had been rediscovered and was being rebuilt. He stood in a park where trees grew under an open sky, breathing air that smelled like home. Above him, ships from a dozen species crossed the sky, bringing trade and friendship to a world that had been alone for too long. "We did it," he said quietly to himself. "We came home." And across the galaxy, in classrooms on 100 worlds, children of every species learned a new lesson. They learned that humanity was not a myth. They learned the story of a people who had been forgotten but refused to disappear. They learned that some things, determination, hope, the refusal to give up, were more powerful than any weapon. They learned that sometimes the myths were true, and sometimes the myths saved everyone.